Hello and welcome to another episode of The Road Less Taken, the weekly web series from Nexus Consulting, where we are in conversation with people who've made unconventional career choices and excelled at them. My name is Venki Srinivasan, your host, and today I'm going to be in conversation with a man who really needs no introduction because he is Amish Tripathi. Hi Amish and welcome to The Road Less Taken. Privileged to have you here. Thank you so much for accepting.
Thank you, Venkatesh. Absolute pleasure being here.
Right. So you've had a fascinating journey. So we're going to try and hear from you some of the key milestones that have happened along this journey. Let me begin by asking you, you've kind of always wanted to be a historian, I think, even when you were young and growing up and so on. So tell us about what childhood was like, what were the ambitions then, and what did you really want to become when you grew up?
Look, I come from an extremely middle-class family. My parents were educated in the Hindi medium. Across, our family, we are the first generation, across my cousins as well, who were educated in the English medium.
Okay.
And my grandfather was a Pandit in Banaras, in Kashi. So even my parents, and they would have learned English. They would have tried to post-college, for jobs. English was little weak. So that was the social atmosphere we came from. And since my grandfather was a Pandit and a teacher at PHU, grandfather on my father's side, and my grandmother on my mother's side was also a teacher.
Wow. Okay.
So there was an atmosphere of love of knowledge, love of learning. So a lot of blessings of Goddess Saraswati. But as the joke goes, Goddess Lakshmi ignored us completely. In our generation, fortunately, we have the blessings of Goddess Lakshmi as well.
Correct. True.
But so that was the atmosphere we were in. Why am I telling you all this? Because that molded in many ways the kind of decisions my siblings and I would take, right, on our career. There are four of us. One sister who's the eldest and three brothers. So all our career decisions were always very pragmatic.
Okay.
So of course I loved history as a subject. I would have loved to become a historian. But when I was growing up in the early 90s, I did my MBA in 1997 from IIM Calcutta, and I graduated in 95 from Xavier's College. History wasn't really a wise career choice.
Right.
So, as the joke would be, कि history में से ठीक है बेटा, काम क्या करोगे?
Right.
So, my sister sat for the IAS. Resigned from that. She did get in. Then she resigned from that later and became a teacher. My elder brother did engineering and went to the corporate world, KPMG. My twin brother and I both did MBAs. My twin brother did and I went to IIM Calcutta and was in banking for 14 years.
Right.
So I was deeply interested in history as a subject.
Right.
But never when I was growing up did I ever think of it as a serious career option.
Right.
It was something I would read for my own joy.
Sure.
So I graduated in science, graduated in mathematics, BSc mathematics. But I would read history books just for my own pleasure.
Right.
I read a lot. I read at least 5-6 books a month. And among my favorite genres would be history, spirituality, science, those kind of stuff.
Do you keep up that reading?
Yeah. I read at least 5-6 books a month. I read a lot.
Wow. Okay.
And I think it's one of the best habits one can have.
Definitely.
So all I'm saying is I had a passion for it, but my career choices were all very pragmatic. So I didn't give up those passions. They would be like my hobbies. But the career choices were on, okay, where can I make a stable income stream from?
Right.
I know it sounds boring, but okay, I'm not ashamed of it. I did the practical, pragmatic.
It's very pragmatic. Yeah, absolutely. And so you went to IIM Cal, you joined, you did Stanchart, DBS, bunch of firms. When did this inflection point happen? Did it happen all of a sudden? Was it like building up over a period of time that this whole, I must pursue this passion of mine of combining history and mythology and writing and all of those?
When I started writing, I wasn't really thinking about where it would go. I didn't even think it would get published, let alone that I could make a career out of it. The story began as a pure philosophy thesis, then expanded slowly into an adventure. The idea being that I'll convey those philosophies through this book. So I would have started writing. I've worked in 3 firms broadly till now, in 14 years. So
right.
Standard Chartered Bank, DBS, Development Bank of Singapore, and the IDBI Group, the private sector subsidiaries.
Right.
IDBI Principal Mutual Fund, IDBI Bank. Last job was with IDBI Federal Life Insurance.
Right.
So I started writing the book when I was in IDBI Bank.
Okay.
And I wrote my first 2 books along with my job.
Wow. Okay.
I resigned only after my second book.
Okay.
And my royalty check became more than my salary.
That is a good
again pragmatic decision. So I was following my heart, but I wasn't jumping without thinking. And when I was writing, I was genuinely I wasn't really thinking where this will go. I'll make money from it. I wasn't thinking all that. I was just writing for myself.
Right.
Perhaps without realizing it, I was living the philosophy suggested to us by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Karmanyavadikaraste. Ma phaleshu kadachana, that you have a right to your karma, not to the fruits of your karma. Don't bother about success, failure. Just do this. And my book was such a source of joy for me, just writing. That success or failure didn't really matter. I was just writing for myself.
Was there a particular push for you to write? Did it come from family? Did it come from somebody else? Or did it just come from something completely internal?
It was more a pull than a push.
Okay. And
often the best things in life are not driven by push. They're actually driven by pull. You're not forced into something, you're attracted into it.
Okay.
I just, I enjoyed spending time in that parallel universe so much that I just wanted to do it more and more. It occurred when my entire family and I were sitting together. And then it germinated in my mind. And then I told that philosophy thesis to my elder sister and my twin brother. And they said, look, it's nice. Write it down. And then I shared it with the rest of my family, my siblings, my wife at that time. She was my wife. They said that, while they are interested in the philosophy, most other people may not be.
Right.
Because the philosophy thesis was an answer to this question, what is evil?
What is evil?
Okay. Yeah, what is evil?
Okay.
So then there was a suggestion that can this be communicated to a story? And I didn't know fiction before that. This is my first book, Immortals of Melbourne. I thought, मैं कहाँ से कहानी लिखूंगा, but it actually started growing in my mind. And initially I tried to write, and there was some germs of a story, initial thoughts. Then I tried to kind of read self-help books, various things to kind of, since I had never written before. But that strategy didn't work at all. Like they always say, self-help books, if they actually work, they would stop selling.
Right.
So then I stopped following the strategy of the self-help books. I just started writing instinctively.
Okay.
Then the blessings just started. And I've said this often, I genuinely can't explain where the stories come from. I genuinely believe it's Lord Shiva's blessings. And he just sends a story and I'm like a channel. I just write what he sends.
Great.
That's how it grew.
Great. But in practicality, it must have been very stressful to continue your day job. And, I'm quite amazed when you said that your first 2 books came out while you were still working. So did you have to cut off a lot of other things from your life, all your, social life and all of those type of things?
Yeah. When I was younger, I used to socialize a lot. In any case. But as I've started writing, my need to socialize started coming down. And you'll have noticed that outside of my book launch times, I do very few media interviews.
Right.
You don't see my pictures on page 3, these things, because I don't go to those parties.
Right.
In my diplomatic job, I'm forced to be a lot more social.
Of course.
So I guess my attitude started changing as I started writing. In my younger years, I used to be very social. I liked partying. But yeah, I think one of the things I realized, there was this phase of 5-6 years where I was working at my job, and financial services. It's it's a high pressure career path. Takes up a lot of your time. Work 6 days a week, 12, 13 hours a day.
Right.
So I used whatever free time I had to write. So for 5-6 years I was burning the candle at both ends. I worked only at my job, wrote my books, and spent time with my family. I did very little else.
So it requires that kind of commitment, I guess, right? Yeah.
But look, if you wanna follow your heart and something that's so deep, then you have to. I mean, there is no substitute to hard work. One of the things I say, this thing ki bhai, the world owes me success. It owes me respect. That nobody owes you anything, boss. Okay. You have to earn it. You have to work hard. And even if you work hard, it's not guaranteed that you will get it. But if you don't work hard, it's guaranteed that you will not get it.
Not get it. Right.
If you work hard, there's a possibility that you might achieve your dreams. So there is no getting around that. There is no getting around.
Right.
I'm not denying that fate plays an important role.
Right.
Being at the right place, right time, right opportunities, and that's not in your control.
Sure. Yeah.
Some people have the capabilities, they work hard, but still things don't work out. Yes, that happens.
Sure.
But often you can be blessed with the best of fates. But if you're sitting around doing, sweet nothing, you will not succeed.
Right.
You find so many people who are born well, parents have left them enough wealth, trust fund kids, still achieve nothing because they're just sitting around lazy. You have to work hard.
Right.
So yeah, for 5-6 years, that was my life.
Right.
Pretty much stopped everything else. No wasting time watching TV. No party. Stopped all that. Just my job, my writing, and spending time with my family. Nothing else. I ended up using my commuting time as well. It's one of the things I've said that that there are actually 24 hours in a day, and you'll spend 6, maybe 6.5 hours sleeping. Right? And you still have some 17.5 hours, right? Which is a hell of a lot.
Right.
If you can use it productively. How much of our time do we waste commuting on a daily basis?
Right.
So now going to the office, 1.5 hours, coming back, 2.5 hours just wasted.
Right.
I invested in a driver. I'm talking about 2004. Right. So salaries were lower at that time.
Right.
Spent, I don't know, 8,000-9,000. The best 8,000-9,000 I invested ever in my life.
Right.
So he used to drive. I used to sit on the backseat of my car. I bought a separate laptop just to write my books, and so suddenly I got 2.5 hours every day. Instead of getting frustrated, कि भाई traffic में time waste हो रहा है, अलना फलाना. Listen to music and write. Suddenly those were the best 2.5 hours of the day.
Great. Yeah.
And of course it gets tiring. I don't deny that.
Of course.
Yeah. Look, you want to achieve something, you have to work hard. There is no hard work will not guarantee success, but it's a necessary condition.
Right.
Not be sufficient, but it's a necessary condition.
Right. Looking back, do you think you would have ever started your career writing any other genre? This mythological fiction, if you can call it that, the genre that you kind of pioneered in India, kind of came to you very naturally, it would seem, right?
Because of my family background. In Sanskrit or Hindi, and in our traditional languages, the term that's used for it is itihasa. Thus it happened. I know, and the limitations of the English language will use mythological fiction, historical fiction, which is okay. That's a term that's used in English. But since my background is in this, it's like a chef will cook a meal basis the ingredients that the chef has.
Right.
So a storyteller will write stories basis the knowledge that he has. So I had knowledge in this area. Because naturally that stories will emerge in this area. I might not always stick to this genre.
Sure.
But it's natural that stories would emerge in this area. And I have to say, I wasn't looking to be a writer. So it's not that I decided I want to be a writer, now let me search for a subject. No. I was very happy being a banker. I mean, it was a boring job, but it paid well.
Right.
Okay. There's no dishonor in the job. At least not in India.
Right.
But it was more a story idea grabbed my soul and I started writing. So it's not that I was planning it.
Right.
It happened to me. And of course, look, again, one should always be practical and pragmatic. It's people assume that those who are in the creative space, everything about their life is perfect. It doesn't work that way. So if I'm a writer, actors, filmmakers, there's a boring part of life as well, right?
Yeah.
We have to do interviews to promote the books. We have to take care of contracts because you find so many writers who are good at their job, but they don't make money. Someone else makes money because they haven't negotiated their contracts. We have to market. Those are things that you realize you have to do it. It's part of the job. Right? And this is what allows you to spend more time writing, because if you're making money from this, you can, then writing doesn't become a pressure.
You talked about marketing, right? You were one of the most unique book marketers probably ever in the world, because I don't know of anybody else who released a YouTube trailer for their book before you did.
I'm not so sure about the world, but I know, at least from what I know, in India at least, no one had released a trailer.
Right.
And then we did a sample chapter for the first book, which worked very well. And one of the things I believe, this fallacy that a good book sells itself, that's nonsense.
Okay.
For success, you need both a good product and good marketing. There's no either or. Right? Good marketing will kill a bad product even quicker, especially in today's day, in the age of social media.
Right.
So because word of mouth is turbocharged today.
Right.
You have to do marketing, and it's not just true of books; it's true of everything.
Right.
You need a good product and you need good marketing.
Right. You touched upon social media just now. You must be getting all kinds of feedback, on social media from friends, family, wherever you go. How do you let that affect you at all? Do you read all of the feedback that you get? How does that kind of change your emotional mindset at sometimes?
Look, the way the modern world is, anyone who's in the public space has to develop a thick skin. One of the golden rules I have, I never engage with trolls. Never. Never. I'm by nature and I like to be polite. By nature, I'm polite. But I have an aggressive fighter streak in me as well. I've calmed down a lot. I used to have a massive temper.
Oh, is that right? That's not believable at all. Okay.
No, my books have changed me my character by 180 degrees. I had a crazy temper. I've had fisticuff fights. I mean, when I was, and even in my early times in my career, I used to shout and scream a lot. Your character can maybe adjust a bit in life, but a few core things never really go. I'm still very competitive. No matter how much I've calmed down, I'm very competitive. Sure. I'm not as crazily competitive as I used to be. But and you know how I am, guys. We are picked because we are insecure, hyper competitive people. The exam system, the relative grading system in the in the institutes, it's designed.
RG really teaches you that, right?
Because they pick us that way, then they hone it even more in the institute. Then the corporate world thinks it even more. Now this attitude in IIM, guys, makes us successful. Makes us value additive to the companies, but it also makes us deeply unhappy on average inside. Someone who's insecure and hyper competitive will be very good at the job, but will be deeply unhappy inside. It's everything has its pluses and minuses.
Right.
I think I've become a lot more secure and calmer. But some of the key things of being hardcore competitive and temper is still there. Right? I've just it's more under control now.
Right.
Therefore, I like to just stay away and not engage because I might just lose my temper and say something silly, which I'll do.
Right.
And if you're a public personality, that's a risk.
It is.
So I never engage with trolls who have random, just want to insult.
Provoke, insult, whatever.
Yeah. But feedback on the books is always welcome, right? Because that's the best way to improve. Right? But my approach to that is also very internal driven, which is I will listen to anyone criticizing my books, but I will do only what feels right to me.
Sure.
If I disagree with the feedback, I don't care if 10 million people are giving me that feedback, I will not accept it.
Right.
If I'm not convinced.
Right.
But But if I'm convinced, and even if one person is giving that feedback, if I'm convinced, I will make that change, because it's an opportunity to improve, right? If you're not willing to listen to feedback, how will you improve? Right? So, and I suggest this to all authors, that all creative guys, that often we get emotional about critics.
Right.
The job of the person is to find fault. Right? That's what the person has been hired for. And I can understand that artists, by our very nature, we are emotional people. So we might react negatively. But one of the things I point to all artists, especially authors, there was a time 10 years ago where critics decided your fate. 10, 15 years ago. Today, critics are utterly and completely powerless. Okay. Nobody, frankly, cares about what they say. We know that. Because the fate of books is decided by the social media conversation, what you hear from your friends. So which means it's much more about the genuine quality of the book.
Right.
And this is such an age of cynicism that the standard approach to a critic of most lay readers is, if it's a positive review,
paid hai.
Paid hai. Correct. I didn't even need to say it, you yourself said. Paid hai. And if it's a negative review, matlab paisa mila nahi. Okay, it is an age of cynicism, right?
Right.
So, which means that professional critics' review actually has no impact on the fate of your book.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, which means take the emotions out of it. You know the bugger is not having any impact on your book. So then see it as an opportunity to learn. Listen to the guy. For all you know, you might actually learn something from them.
Pick up one in some small.
Then you can implement in your next book.
Sure.
It's an opportunity to improve. If you take the emotions out of it, it's an opportunity to improve. But if you're not convinced by that criticism, at least I believe, I care a damn if 10 million people are giving that feedback, I will not listen. It is my book. I will write what I am convinced about. If you are so convinced, you write your own book. No, my book, I will decide. I will listen.
No, you seem to be very secure about what you want to write, because, for example, not everybody would write a Ramachandra series with Ravan as the entire central character of one book itself. I mean, that shows how secure you are in the way you want to tell your story.
I believe the way I will write what feels right to me. Right? If my purpose is to make money, then I can always go back to a banking job and it pays well. Right? A creative pursuit cannot be at its core about money or fame. Money or fame has to be a welcome byproduct.
Right.
It cannot be the core. The core is you have something deep inside you which you want to say. It's a voice of your soul. And you should genuinely have that karmanya vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. I know I'm repeating it, but that I will do this because this is what I want to do. Not because I'm thinking for success or failure. Another line from the Bhagavad Gita, Shreya Swadharma Vigunaha Paradharmat Swanushuta. That I will do my Swadharma even if I make mistakes while doing it.
Right.
Rather than doing someone else's Swadharma even if I do it perfectly. Why? Because I am me. My task is to do my Swadharma, not someone else's Swadharma. And no one else can decide what my Swadharma is, only I will decide. Because it's my life.
Very interesting.
That is the way I believe we should live our lives that way, not just write books. But I can't say I live all aspects of my life that way, but at least my books, I like to, which is why my books are such a source of joy for me. Writing it. It's like I find purpose. With it.
That's a great point. That's a great point. So your journey today seems to have brought you to this very interesting diplomatic role that you are currently playing in London. Tell us a little bit about this. What does your role entail you to do? What are you seeking to achieve here?
Look, this is a role, I was called for it, and it is a huge honor. Because I am I am who I am. I don't pretend to be something I'm not. I am deeply proud and deeply passionate about our ancient Indian culture.
Right.
Traditional Indian culture. I'm very, very proud. I'm not anti-West or anti anyone else. There's good things to learn from everyone.
Sure.
But at my core, I'm deeply proud of our culture. And this was, an opportunity to do something for our culture. The Nehru Center is India's biggest cultural center. It is what the British Council is in India. The Nehru Center is its equivalent in the West. And our job is to promote Indian culture, Indian thoughts, and the Indian narrative. It's an honor and it's an opportunity to contribute something to a land that I love and a culture that I love. So I thought I will take it up. I mean, one of my conditions is I'll continue writing, of course.
Right. We are waiting for the next couple of books to come out.
I came out with Legend of Suheldev just a month back.
Right.
So so I continue to write.
Right.
But this is an opportunity to add something, to do something, to make my own small contribution to a nation and a culture that I deeply love and admire.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And what are we to expect from Amish in the next couple of years? I know you've started the Suheldev series, which is a little different in genre from your earlier books, and you have a Ramchandra series which we are eagerly waiting for completion. Is there anything completely dramatically different that's going to come out? Is there going to be a set of movies that are going to come out?
So various things happening on and besides my diplomatic job, various things happening on the creative space. One is, of course, the Ramchandra series. I'm writing the 4th book right now, 5th of the way through. That I hope to release in the second half of 2021.
Okay.
Suheldev is a part of a series called the Indic Chronicles.
Okay.
Where I hope to write stories of ignored heroes.
Okay.
And heroines.
Okay.
Who fought for our land and our culture and our country.
So each book is going to be about a different person.
Right. And this is going to be a part of the Writers Center. I have more story ideas than the capacity to write. And it takes me a year and a half to 2 years between books. At this pace, I'll die before I finish all my story ideas, which I cannot do.
Yeah.
So I've started a Writers Center. It was an idea from my team where I've hired a few published writers. I tell them the story summary. So I might write a 5,000 word, 10,000 word story summary. They write the first draft, 65,000 words, and then I work on the second draft.
Nice.
So what this does, it expands my capacity. So I can
Okay.
So I can finish all my story ideas before I die. That's the second broad area I'm working on. The third broad area is I've started my own production company in Mumbai.
Okay.
My elder brother has joined to run it, Anish Dada. Like I said, he worked in KPMG, Amarjal Mangaldas, etc. A guy with 14-15 years of TV experience, Aman Gurwada, has also joined. And we've got a team under them, and we're developing Suheldev for a movie by ourselves. We're developing a few series as well. So yeah, so that work is
fantastic. What is the one piece of advice you would give to our young viewers watching this series and the show who are aspiring authors or who are aspiring to do anything creative and non-conventional, really?
One of the things which I always suggest is have a marriage between your heart and your mind. Swinging on either extreme is usually not a good idea. It's the same way with your brain as well. Our education system is designed to just develop our logical, rational half, the left brain. The right half is completely ignored. Our modern education system, which is based more on Prussia, on the Prussian education system. Our traditional Gurukul education system developed both the left brain and the right brain, the logical, rational part, and the intuitive, creative
part.
Yeah. Only then do you get only then do you become genuinely productive and whole. It's a way you see our graduation thing is also, the people who become hard engineering sciences and don't have enough philosophical thoughts, or, so that either they can be successful but unhappy, or often they end up doing things like scientists discovering or creating discoveries where they're not thinking through, is that going to be positive or negative for society, because they don't care. Right. And on the other hand, you'll have people studying only humanities who are basically unemployable.
Right.
Studying, I don't know, gender patterns among apes in medieval Africa. How are you going to get a job from that?
Right.
Who will hire you?
Right. Yeah.
So, and you spend $80,000 a year, to earn that and go into debt. So, you have to have a marriage of both. And this is the thing that I would urge all of you. Try and develop your right brain as well. develop hobbies. It's not just about earning money from it. It actually makes you a whole and complete person.
Right.
Have a marriage between your heart and your mind. That's when you'll lead a life that is genuinely successful. Not just success in terms of money. So like, I mean, my heart pulled me into the world of writing, but I didn't jump without thinking. I let the mind plot the journey. Let the heart decide the destination. Let the mind plot the journey. So try and achieve balance. One of the things in the modern world, sadly, and this has come from philosophies, West, Middle East, where things tend to swing on extreme.
Right.
Whereas the traditional Indian approach was always Ati Sarvatra Varjayit. Extremes of anything should be avoided. That the divine is in balance. So try and find balance in the heart and the mind, in the left brain and the right brain.
Fantastic.
Try and find balance, you'll lead a good life.
Thank you very, very much. I think the one line you said will stay with me at the end of this conversation. Let the mind plot the journey. Let the heart plot the destination. Thank you very much, Amish, for spending time and sharing your thoughts with us. Very inspiring. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Venkatesh.
So that, friends, was Amish Tripathi telling us about his career journey as a financial services professional turned author and mythologist turned diplomat. If that was inspiring and created an impact on you, don't miss future episodes of The Road Less Taken. They drop every Friday on the YouTube channel of Nexus Consulting. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Till I meet you on another episode of The Road Less Taken, this is Venki Srinivasan saying stay home, stay safe, and bye-bye.